Hello, my friends, and welcome to MSP Unplugged. This is the place to learn tips, tricks, and strategies to help you run and grow your IT service business. Whether you're a one person shop or a more established business leading a team for the journey, this is the place for you. My name is Rick Smith, and I am your host. I am joined, as always, by my good friend, Chicago's own most famous MSP, Mr. Paco Lebron. How are you, sir?
Boy, Mr. Smith, if I didn't any better, it'd be a sin.
Stealing my lies, stealing my
I
lies. That's
gotta
good
keep
to
you on your
hear, though.
toes.
That's
Gotta
good
keep
to
you on your
hear.
toes.
We have a special guest today, but before we bring him on, um, we'd like to make our public service announcement. As you all know, what's coming up. That's Paco's favorite topic and my absolute favorite topic. That is, what is that, Mr. Paco?
Is that leg up on June 1st? That's happening over at Gradient. No, we
I
have
don't
we have
think so,
nothing but
buddy.
love for we have nothing but love for Gradient over there. But if you haven't, tune in to Leg Up when you hear this. If you haven't, this will be last week, so it'd be too late of news. But you must be talking about TechCon Unplugged, my friend.
Yes, sir, I am. Yes, sir, I am. TechCon Unplugged is happening September 7th to the 10th at the Delta Hotel in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Yes, folks, my neck of the woods this time on the East Coast. Now, TechCon Unplugged is our annual gathering of IT business owners, techs, and vendors in the space. There you will learn from like-minded business owners in panels, breakout sessions, gain key takeaways from partners and vendors in the community. My absolute favorite part of this and why I'm really a member is you get to experience those one-on-one and spontaneous group conversations where great friendships are built. That's how Paco and I met. Relationships are cultivated and ideas are exchanged. Now, tickets are on sale at techconunplugged.com. We are in the second stage of our early bird pricing, which is $299. That is good until June 30th. So at the time of this recording, it is to the end of the month. So take advantage of the early bird special. If you are a member of the MSP Unplugged community, reach out to Paco and I, and you can get a special discount for your commitment to us. So for everyone, we look forward to seeing you there. Now, our guest today, we want to bring in is someone you all should know. If you don't, I don't know if you've been hiding under a rock or something here, but I'd like to welcome in Mr. Nigel Moore of the Tech Tribe. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me back on this thing.
Yeah, you're welcome. Welcome here. We're really glad to have you. And you know, as a lot of you here, if you're constant members of the show, if you're members of the show, you hear us refer to certain things from the Tech Tribe, refer to Nigel every now and then, because he is really one of those. You guys know I give Paco a lot of big ups about his commitment to the community, but this is someone else who I really admire for what they do and how they help the community, how he gives back. The Tech Tribe, I've been a member for north of 3 years now, and it's been an immense resource. And Nigel's just an all-around great guy, and you will very rarely hear anybody say any different. Actually, I've never heard anybody say any different, but according to Nigel, he's got a couple of people who are not fans.
We've got some haters.
And those haters should slap themselves.
Well, Nigel, I didn't give you a spectacular intro myself, but for those who don't know you, just give us a little brief introduction of who Nigel is and how you got to the Tech Tribe or how you formed the Tech Tribe.
Now I've got to try and live up to this hype. So my quick background is I ran and owned an MSP for a long time, probably the better part of a decade, and I worked in an MSP for a long time before that as well. Eventually sold my MSP in 2016 and started the Tech Tribe community as a place to help other MSPs avoid all the stupid crap that I did wrong for the 15 years that I was in the MSP space. And so we built a cool little community. We've got about 4,000 MSPs in it all around the world now, where we literally just spend our days helping them with marketing and sales and service delivery and customer onboarding and hiring and firing and all that sort of stuff, all the things that go along with running an MSP. And obviously we've got an awesome community, which is what gets talked about a lot in there, that just as our industry does so well, comes together and just helps each other out go through this crazy journey of running and building a crazy business like an MSP. And so that's me. I'm also an Aussie, as you might be able to tell. Hang out. I live on the beach, and so surf as much as I can. Even though I've got pasty white skin, still surf as much as I can before the sun comes up. And that's about it. There's probably a million more things, but that would bore the hell out of you. And this is a podcast for techs. You don't want to hear all the other stuff that goes on.
I don't know about you, Rick, but I would love to hear about more of the surfing.
Yeah.
That's something
The
I always
surfing.
wanted to do.
Oh, you can come out here and give it a go. We got out the front of our place. We got one of the most, or I'm a little bit biased, but we've got one of the most amazing surf breaks in the world, I reckon, here. And you can catch a wave on a good day for about 1.5 kilometers.
Wow.
Which is nearly a mile, I guess. I don't know how conversion rates work so well, but nearly a mile. And you get this wave, and at the end of it, your legs are jelly because you've just been riding this wave for a couple of minutes trying to carve up and down. So hopefully one day I can get both of you gents out here and onto that thing and give it a go.
It'll have to be in the plans, that's for sure.
I tell you what, I'll go, but you don't want to see these legs on the surfboard.
Never say never.
That's funny. So Nigel, I know that we last when you were on, we talked a little bit about kind of the journey of an IT service provider and MSP, just trying to figure out the number one, at least in my opinion, if it's not talking about what tools should they have in their stack, they were talking about how should they price and package their services. And we had a great conversation talking a lot about that. During that time, you also had released a book called Survive and Thrive. Basically the MSP or ITSP owner's guide of surviving and thriving in uncertain times. And so at the time, during the shelter in place and the COVID outbreak, kind of inspired you to create that book when we last talked about it. But I think now I would love to have an open conversation just on your reflection of how things kind of went on back then, what caused you to write the book, and then even now talk a little bit about, and we'll kind of go into a conversation of where, a lot of people feel that there is some uncertain times coming up this next year with the economy, with things and pressures around in the environment, and them just trying to be more cautious as they would like to be. But in your book, it actually really explains on why some things need to be doubled down versus just really being scarce in some of that mentality. But before we kind of dive into all that, why don't you talk a little bit about kind of your mindset back then, why you felt you the need to write that book, how long it took you to write the book, and just how was the reception when it came out?
Yeah, so that book was written just as coronavirus went crazy, and I think it was April where the world was kind of shutting down and everybody is going into this hyper sensitive state of holy crap, we don't know what's happening out there, and because we sit in a role where lots of people look to us for where to go, what to do, vision and inspiration. It was like, what can I do to help people here? And I started just sat in front of my laptop and went, all right, I just got to start giving people ideas of what I would do if I was in their shoes in this particular scenario. And if I was running an MSP right now, specifically. And so started writing some stuff, and I was just going to send a little PDF to our members. It was going to be like an email or a PDF to our members. And 4 days later of just sitting there writing, I went, holy crap, like this is now a book. And it ended up turning into Survive and Thrive, the book. And there's no real narrative to it. The narrative is that there's no real big narrative to it. It's kind of chops and changes through a few different things, but there is a bunch of stuff in there that is prevalent not only back then when everybody is scared and worried about the future and not knowing what to do, and it gives you a bunch of email scripts, a bunch of templates to talk to your team and to just prep them to be comfortable knowing that we're going to be going through this, whatever this crazy journey is we've got in front of us together. And again, right now we're in another time where the economy is who knows which way it's going right now. It's been in this kind of weird middle ground for a while now, and it's going upwards, it's going downwards, and the media loves that because it just means that they've got all this fodder that they can just bounce on and get eyeballs on and whatnot. And for me, in my world, I steer so darn clear of the media nowadays because so much of it is overbeaten, and it's always like typical media. Most media is typically obviously negative because negative news sells and positive news doesn't sell anywhere near as much. And so the book and my philosophy as we go through this stuff is even though the external world can seem to be in a little bit of chaos and be going through things, that doesn't mean that your world has to be. You can still take these opportunities of market cycles going up and down to to not go, oh, I'm going to be beaten down and I'm going to spend some time in kind of hibernation, setting back. Like, you should be using these downtimes to double down on your business and setting the foundations and stages and everything for when the tides turn, because markets naturally always are, forever will have ebbs and flows. There will always be bull markets. There will always be bear markets. There will always be middle grounds that plot along for years. And your decision really is, is my business going to be wildly affected by all of those things that are naturally going to happen? Or am I going to just forget about all this crap going on external to me and just focus on the stuff that I can focus on inside my own business? And so the book goes through just a bunch of things that if you're going through hard times, if it looks like it's hard stuff around you, here's what you need to do. And a lot of it is about communication to your team, communication to your clients. And if you're an MSP owner, lots of people look to you. Your clients are looking to you for what to do. They're looking to you not only as their source of technical knowledge and technical stuff, they're also looking to you, hopefully, is if you position yourself the right way, as a source of what to do in business and and where to go in business and also as in a personal journey as well, like in personal growth of you as a business owner or business leader. And so the more you can communicate with your clients out there, and keep that line of communication going where you are positioning yourself and giving them inspiration and ideas and giving them tactics and whatever it is to help them in their business, the more they're going to stay aligned to you as they go through these things. And equally with your team, like teams in small businesses, like when I wrote this is obviously when staff members were worried about jobs like crazy. It's like, oh, am I going to lose my job? And in there, I ran through a bunch of ways to sit with your team and give them the confidence that, hey, we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder and we're going to figure out how the hell to get through this. And I remember there was one MSP out here in Australia, a guy called James runs an amazing MSP called Extreme Networks, where he, as all this craziness was happening, and some MSPs are putting their heads in the sand and not thinking about what they're going to do and not communicating with their clients or their team or anything. He instead grabbed all of his team. He had some remote team as well, got them all in a boardroom for a day. And he said he did prepared a PowerPoint presentation and the things up on the first thing here was our number one goal is for us to come out the other side of this with every single one of you still in a job. That was it. I'm the leader of the business and I'm going to do whatever the heck it takes to do that. That's our goal. And we're going to work together. And because of that, his team had utmost confidence that they've got the best chance of getting through this with their job intact, with their future intact. And can you imagine what that does to morale when the team is doing their work and when they're out there talking to the clients and they're on the front lines and whatnot, when they know that the business has got their back and their number one goal out of all is to make sure that the team maintains status quo and maintains jobs no matter what. They go out and they do well. And so the book runs through a bunch of tactics in it, email scripts that they send and stuff. That's kind of a little bit tactical, a little bit strategic, but I think there's a lot of timeless stuff in there as well, because there is always ebbs and flows. It doesn't have to be economic. It can be an ebb and flow in your own business where you're going through a challenging time because of a bad part of growth, or you've lost some clients or whatnot. And it always, there's a lot of those timeless things that just mostly around communication, keeping communication lines open between everybody around you and transparency and whatnot. And so that's where it came from. As I said, it was kind of 4 days. My family hated me for those 4 days because I just sat on my lounge just trying to get all of this stuff out, and it eventuated out in that book. And the reception's been great. It's a book that we just give away. Like, I don't want to make any money from it. I just want people to read it is all, and hopefully if they get one thing from it, awesome. That's all I care about. It's a quick read. I think you can get through it in probably 60 minutes. I don't like writing books that people don't read, so I work my butt off to also make them readable to get through in a 60 or 90 minute max timeline as well.
And I think the ironic thing about it is I remember reading through it, and when a lot of times when you get those, the sky is falling, we're stuck, it's COVID or it's economic times. I talked to a lot of MSPs, and Paco and I both had talked about this. Through these times, as our business grew, our business expanded, and our processes expanded. We learned a lot more, and it's just great that you provided a resource like that. But again, it was don't look at it as a negative and expect everything to not work. because things actually got better, and my business, I'll speak personally, my business got better because we were a little more organized, we're a little more focused. And and what we thought was going to happen was nothing like what actually happened.
Doom and gloom is out there like crazy, and
Mhm.
and it's all about the one thing one of the big things I've learned over the years is that the framing of how I see the world and what's happening in the world internally. So my internal framing of how I see things is wildly important, and so I can look at things with that negative Nelly kind of frame and look around and see all the negative news, and that impacts every single thing I do in my day, every single conversation I have, every single thing I build in my business. Or I can look around with rose-colored glasses on, or whatever you want to call it, and see the positive in things, even if the media is, and even if there is tough times out there, and I can go, okay, well, I can find some positive in here, and I can figure out what are the lessons that we're learning through this particular phase, or what opportunities have we got to do this through all this other external chaos that's happening out here. And I think as you go through business, the more you can just try and, like, I think naturally us business owners, like entrepreneurs, typically see the world in a positive light. We've got our rose-colored glasses on, and we're looking at things in a positive way, which is awesome. But if you get too sucked up in that kind of media game, then that can shift things and change your frame and whatnot. So I think, to me, it's wildly important to keep your internal frame of reference, or your internal locus of control, focused on the positive and looking for the positive and finding positive, because in every horribly bad, destructive, horrible situation, there is always opportunity, and there's always lessons, and there is always learnings, and there's always things that can come out on a positive side. And if I look back over my years, I've been through some horrible bloody times, like everybody has. I'm not singling myself out there, but everybody's been through horrible times. And I look back on them now and I go, holy crap, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be the human I am today, and I wouldn't have the business that I am today. And so I look at nowadays, whenever I'm going through a horrible time, and we've actually had a quite a horrible time inside the tech tribe in a certain area of it in the past month or so, with some team challenges. And every single day I'm looking at it going, with a different frame now than what I would have looked at it 10 years ago. I'm looking at it going, this is just opportunities and lessons for us. It's helping us improve. It's helping us grow, where we're going to come out the other side of this thing a better business. We're going to deliver a better service to our clients. I'm going to be a better leader to our team, and whatnot. And so I think just having that internal frame is such an important thing for all of us, and trying to do what we can as leaders in business, and leaders to our team, and leaders to our clients, to maintain that degree of realism, but focusing and optimizing for the positivity in there, and looking for those lessons and opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. There's a lot to unpack, definitely, from everything that we just talked about. I think the first thing I wanted to highlight, or really jump on, is the fact of uncertain times, right? And I think that uncertain times for a lot is hard to deal with for some that may not have experienced it.
Yep.
And I think, uncertain times in general, of whether it is outside forces that are affecting you, whether that is you're maybe running the business part-time, your W-2 or your full-time job let you go, so you have been waiting for an opportunity to make the jump, but the jump you essentially were pushed off, right? So now you're afraid. There's uncertain times, and trying to figure that piece out. There are times where an unexpected debt or something that may have come to you, where you just skated by, and now with this big detriment that has occurred to you, now how do you handle some of that? And then even down to outside forces, where, again, news media, the economy, basically things that are happening that are outside of your control. How do you handle that, right? And so I think from all of those, it wasn't until recently that I heard the actual phrase of what it meant to experience that, because through some of those examples, I've gone through some of those and understood that, okay, it's bad right now, but it's going to get better. And that's kind of how it's always been, really trying to understand and figure out what is the best way for me to kind of move forward. And so it wasn't until I forgot what I was listening to, something on social media, but Tom Hanks had actually said a quote. He says, "The one thing I wish I knew that I know now is this too shall pass."
Yeah.
Whether it is a bad time, this too shall pass, or it's a really great time, this too shall pass, right? Like, it's never going to be stagnant and staying to where you are. But what's important about that lesson is how you perceive it and how do you take advantage of it. I remember X amount of years ago when I was greeted with something like that, I always felt like it happened to me. And really how I've now shifted my mentality over the last 10 years is that things are now happening for me.
Correct.
And how do I apply that for, okay, this scenario happened for me. How do I get the most out of it? Whether, like you said, Nigel, positive, how do I go from there? You know, Rick just mentioned, you know, during the COVID outbreak and shelter in place, as unfortunate as that time and many people, you know, have felt the impact of that, positive or negative. For us, it was an unfortunate incident, but it brought us very good times because it allowed us to double down and understand what people needed. And just like what you said, Nigel, is people were coming to us not only as tech advisors and IT advisor, but business advisors, and
Correct,
really understanding like, hey, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. What can we do? Down to private healthcare for, you know, for my segment is chiropractors and physical therapists who had to shut their doors and they were trying to figure out how they're going to continue to main business. So telehealth was starting to become now the thing, down to point where people were just trying to figure out, okay, I send all my people home. What do I do? All the systems are at work. And how do we get that and kind of moving forward? So I think uncertain times has really brought to the point where it's really how it's perceived and really is, you're not just trying to survive it. I'm going to go ahead and put this pun there, but really, how do you thrive through these times? Right. And I think that's the most important part about the book. And so it's been on my list to reread it because, as you mentioned, every phase of an MSP or an IT service provider is different. And someone may grab something different than someone else. When I read it back when I think you were on the show, you were nice enough to send me a copy, and I looked at it and I read it, it was a night read for me. But I was a solo MSP at the time. And so now, 7 employees later, you know,
Awesome.
again, there were things that you had mentioned, which is communication, and how important that is so big, not only just to your clients, but internally too. And I'm not just talking about kind of economy, like, you know, perfect example, like the economy now that everyone kind of doesn't know. You don't know what your employees or your staff is feeling right now. And are they going to be open to you to tell you, hey, do I still have a job? Or, you know, they're trying to navigate that landscape themselves, whether it's their first job in this industry, into their career. They may not know that they have the ability to do so. So being able to create a safe space, whether they're in office, remote, etc., is really huge. But I'm curious for you. I know that you help manage a remote team as well. How has that been for as far as improving communications, and what have you learned versus, I don't know if your MSP was in office or not, but how did you help with that transition / how do you maintain the communications for a remote team to make sure that they are heard and that they can get that feedback?
You got to triple down on it. Like in person, my MSP was in person predominantly. We had a couple of full-time remote people around the world, but predominantly in person. We were probably 80%. So it was a bit easier. And we always had, if we were doing an all hands meeting, we would have them dialed into the screen in the boardroom. But with remote, it is, and I am still learning this, and I've been running remote teams now, 100% remote teams for 7 years in the tech tribe. And then obviously in my MSP, I had some remote people, and that was probably 4 years. So probably 10 or 11 years, 12 years I've been doing remote. And I'm still learning the importance of tripling down on your communication with your team in remote, because you don't have the opportunity to have the hallway chatter or the water cooler chatter that to the level that you would. We've all got the water cooler channel in Teams or Slack or whatever it is, but it's just not at the layer that it exists in real person. And so there's a bunch of awesome books that I've read over the years around remote leadership and how to double down on that remote leadership. And a lot of it is the all hands meetings, the very regular, like, one of the things I hated in business and still hate in business is the annual performance reviews. And so we don't do them at all. Like I'm catching up with most of my team in a one-on-one status, some weekly, maximum monthly in there, in some way, shape or form. And then we do very formal reviews quarterly for a number of team members in there. And And that's those spaces, as you said, Paco, like making sure that you've got continual safe space for your employees and your team to be able to have the tough conversations and be vulnerable enough, and you be like have the level of trust with you so that they can be vulnerable to ask the tough questions, and you be proactive with answering the tough questions that they might be asking. A lot of, I know in my early years as a green tech, when I was first working in tech companies, like I was very scared of asking my bosses and owners questions about the company, about the future, about money, and all of those sorts of things. And a lot of techs in MSPs are exactly the same. They've got these questions burning in their minds, but they're not asking them because they're too scared to ask them. And so that is the onus then falls on you as the business owner to realize that, and to know that, or the business owner or manager to know that, and preempt some of those questions and be proactive about furnishing that information out to your team, either in one-on-one scenarios or in team scenarios, like all hands meetings or whatever it is that you happen to have. But that communication flow is so darn important in an MSP, in any business if you're remote. And your team, the bigger you get, the harder it nearly gets, because you've got to, you start stepping up the chain from, and this is a part of the journey that we're going through in the Tech Tribe at the moment, is we've predominantly up until now just been a small team of 7 or 8 staff, 7 or 8 full-timers and part-timers, that because we're kind of tight, and it's a lot of doing, we're just in there in the trenches doing things, and we've never had a leadership team. It's been okay. We've just lots of conversations with me and with each other and whatnot. We've gone through things, but then we're through the stage now where we're building an executive team. An executive team don't need to hear what to do. They need to hear where we're going and what the vision for the future is. They need to know that, so that then they can decide what the to-do stuff is. And so then you get to the point where vision of the company starts to become wildly important. And in my early years in a business, it's like you hear from the business pundits that you've got to care about vision, like core values and mission and vision and all of that stuff. And I'm like, what is all that hoo-ha? Like, just get in a room and just do work together. Like, that's it. And I had built a number of businesses just with that, until I've now grown a business to the point where that doesn't work at a certain stage. You outgrow that, and you get to the point where vision, mission, and values are wildly important in there. Especially, and values, or we like to call them internally core behaviors. Like, what are our core behaviors? Because values to me is a little bit still airy fairy. Maybe I've got to reconcile that myself and get along with it. But we do, like, what are our tribal core behaviors as a team? What are the things that we believe in? And that's wildly important, because as you grow, you get better at hiring people, and when you hire people, one of the most important things you can do is making sure that they align with your values in your business, or your core behaviors in your business, or your core beliefs in your business. And then talking to them about your vision. Like, what is your vision? Where are we going? Like, what's the big tough challenge that we're solving here? And like James, I mentioned before, in his MSP, as the coronavirus was starting, he got his team rallied around their mission, and that mission was just to make sure that we keep every one of your jobs. That's our mission for now. We're all going to stand shoulder to shoulder and share that. And him standing up the front of his team was one of the most important things that he could have done at that point in time. He could have sat in the trenches beside them and knocked out help desk tickets, but they still would have been having those questions going on in their head that were unanswered around where we're going. And so he took that layer step above and went, okay, I've got to get into vision and mission and talk about that stuff, because what people need is inspiration and confidence and the ability to see a little bit further into the future, but where they can't see at the moment. All they're looking at is just unknown, and all their frame, like their internal frame, is completely built. Most people's is built based on what they're seeing in the news, and whether that's online news or watching the news or whatever it is. And the job of any business leader, especially in uncertain times, and I think the reality is, like, there's always uncertain times in business. I don't think I've ever been in business in 22 years where there hasn't been something going on in some way, shape, or form. The media's always got to have something to grab onto and get eyeballs. Right. And whether it's all the different things that we've had over the years, there's always something going on. And so that importance of a business leader to say, hey, we're going to block this stuff out, and we're going to pick a mission, and we're going to pick a customer to serve, or a customer type to serve, and we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder, and we're going to do that together. And there's going to be crap times, and there's going to be fun times, and we're going to share in all of that together. And as you said, Paco, looking at those fun times and looking at those crap times, knowing that the good times are going to pass and the bad times are going to pass. Like the business is always this up and down journey. But one of the things that I truly believe in business is that you've got your, and if you're listening to this, you're not going to be able to see my hands here, but you've got this ups and downs. Like there's this, it's like a sine curve going up and down and up and down and up and down all the time. And by the nature of that sine curve is that you come back down to the same point that you were down to last time. And I don't believe that's correct. In business, I believe we might have the ups and downs, but if you zoom out a little bit and look at the longer term trends, we're typically always heading in an upward direction. We're just having the ups and downs. It's like the economy. If you go and look at the economy, like the what do you call them, like the index funds or whatever at a macro level, you'll see they're always headed in an upward trend. If you zoom out far enough, they're always headed in an upward trend. And businesses like that, because when you go through a downward horrible part, you're not coming out the exact same person. You're coming out a new person or a new business because you've learned lessons, you've made mistakes, you've got all these things, and that means that you're in a better spot than you were before as you went through that thing. And that to me means that is why I feel we're always in an upward trajectory, even though we might be in a downward stage of that thing at the moment. We might be moving, we might feel like we're in a horrible spot, which we might be. We're still in a general bigger zoomed out trend, moving upwards and moving in a better direction.
Right. It's important to understand too, as you kind of move forward, you have the ability to see that you have progressed further than where you were before. And I think that's such a big piece in really understanding on how, where you were now, as you mentioned, when you return back, you have either gotten a really great lesson and figured out how to get better, so that you don't get you either know how to land on your feet again, or a little bit not so hard of ground when you crash.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Or B, you've kind of figured out how to not, and you see it coming and it won't be as painful as you hit down. So
exactly right.
Rick, when it comes to really just diving again into the ability of focusing, figuring out when to expect certain things. I know we did an episode before either in the beginning of this year or before the new year. We said, I forgot what we called the episode, but basically like what recession, right? And like how is that going to affect us and things like that. A, do you still feel that the same way? And two, hearing obviously how Nigel just kind of described it, is that kind of a similar kind of mentality that we were thinking of when we had decided to record that episode? And B, have we followed through? And I'm curious to hear on your side on all that.
Absolutely. And it's kind of, and I know this wasn't the title of the episode, but I know my first statement was F the R word. So because essentially, I learned, like I said earlier, I learned from the COVID experience that you can actually, you're going to get what you expect. And if you expect for things to be terrible and you act accordingly that way, things will be terrible. But if you expect, or if you are, and I guess the word is discipline, right? If you're disciplined enough to continue to do what you've been doing and double down on certain things, take advantage of the opportunities, things will tend to work out right. Again, it's like you say, it is an upward swing, and sometimes you get those ebbs and flows, and you might trip over a rock on your way up, but you get up and but you keep going. And each time you do that, you learn how to deal with it better as well.
Correct.
Right? You learn what to expect, or you learn that the sky is not necessarily falling. And you can get up and keep it moving. So yes, I still absolutely feel that way. And through whatever times we go through, again, you can't be, I'm not going to tell anyone to be naive, to be naive or just ignore what's going on around you. You should be aware of the conditions and the cycle or whatever the scenario is, but you cannot let that define how not let those times dictate how your business is going to go, because you can still grow. And I just say it again, COVID was the greatest example for me. I was more busy doing COVID than I'd ever been before that. And it's something I did not expect, but it was something that, I prepared for, or I was ready for. So
You know, in one of the, if I look back in my history, there's a number of I guess inflection points or turning points or lessons that I unlocked at certain stages, and what or in this instance, what I'm going to share is a book that I read that really helped me reframe my thinking around positivity in bad situations, or looking forward, or having a vision for a future. And I don't know if both of you guys have read it. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And it is a phenomenal book. He wrote it in 1946, I think it was. And it was about his journey in the concentration camps in World War II. And in this particular book, he talks about, as he was in concentration camps, which we're talking about, like when we're looking at our situations, we're always like, we're often going, oh, it's crap, it's tough, rough, rah, rah, rah. Like reality is we're in awesome shelter. We've got great food around us. Like, sure, business might be a little bit worrying or not, but concentration camps is like the worst of the worst, right? And Victor was like, the whole story. It's an amazing book. If you haven't read it, it's a very, very short read. Like, read it before you read mine, please. It's wildly important. But he talks about, he was able to see these patterns in the people that were in concentration camps, of the ones that didn't make it. The ones that died were the ones that didn't have, couldn't see the future. They didn't have a vision for the future. They didn't know what was going to happen, and they were unsure. Whereas the ones that made it through, there was clear patterns, that it was the ones that were still, no matter how horrible the conditions they were in, they still had a glimpse of the future. They were still, like in his instance, it was always like, I'm going to get out of here one day and have this, like, have an awesome future and have all these lessons that I've learned from this particular thing. But the ones that had given up were the ones that then succumb to diseases and succumb to all sorts of things as they're living in these long-term concentration camps. And that's the lessons inside that book have always struck with me, and that no matter how horrible a situation that I am in, there has been people that have been in a million times worse situations than me and can see the positive out of it. And that story inspired the crap out of me to no matter how hard a situation I'm in, family members passing away and cancer is going through, like all of those situations, which are horrible on all of us, I'm still going through them they're not affecting my core. I still am emotional about them. I'm still deal with the negativity of it, but they don't affect my core, because I still believe that I have a future, and I'm around my family to help them get through these situations and whatnot as well. And so I think having a frame of reference around that yes, things might be hard, and they're hard comparatively to us, but when we compare our relative situations to other situations that are happening in the world right now in third world countries, and situations that have happened in the past, aka concentration camps, we live in extreme luxury and extreme amazing circumstances that people 50 years ago would look at and go, holy moly, like that doesn't sound real. Like, you look at the reality that we live in nowadays, and I wake up every day and just look at the world that I've got, and the fact that I've got access to anything I can possibly think of with my thumb, and then we've got infrastructure all around the world, and we've got a hospital system and all that sort of stuff. And I look at all that stuff in extreme awe all the time. Like, sometimes my jaw literally just drops when I start thinking about the absolute amazing world that we do live in, be it all that there's craziness going on and whatnot. But when you pair it back to its roots, there is so much amazingness that we're experiencing, that we have access to, that we need to keep that frame of reference to avoid us from getting complacent and getting negative about the actual amazing world that we do live in here. And the good thing I've seen recently in the past few years is, like, everybody knows that typical mainstream media focuses, and I'm kind of beating up on media here on this podcast, so if there's any media players, apologies. But everybody knows that mainstream media typically focuses on negative, because negative sells, because as human beings, we're hardwired to look for negative things, because in olden times past, there used to be a saber-toothed tiger that would mean a death spell for us if we weren't focusing on looking for negative stuff. So we're hardwired to always look for negative stuff, even though we live in a society, in an environment where we don't need to focus on the negative anymore, and we should be focusing far more on the positive. Our biology and our prefrontal cortex just hasn't caught up with the environment that we live in at the moment. And so I think having that as I said, that frame of reference in there, and just continually being grateful and looking around for opportunities to be grateful around what we do have out there, just makes us turn into people makes life so much easier to get to, and business so much easier to get through, when we're continually seeing the awesome around me. And I can't, like, in the early years, I used to of my journey of personal growth or whatever you call it. I used to have coaches or consultants or whatever that would tell you, like, you've got to do daily gratitude, and you've got to, like, because you're seeing the world in this horrible way, and daily gratitude. I'm like, oh, what the heck is that crap? Like, I'm not going to journal daily gratitude. And but over the years, I've journaled every single day for, I think it's 7 years now straight, and I do a lot of gratitude based journaling in there. And when I look back at Nigel 7 years ago, before I started focusing on gratitude, versus Nigel now, it is a completely different human. I look back at him and I feel sorry for the poor guy, because he lived in this horrible negative view of the world. And I think a lot of it comes back to me actually doing the work, which I didn't believe in at the time, of looking around and being continually grateful and looking for opportunities to be grateful for what we do have out there. And nowadays, as I said, like, it's my natural thing is to look for opportunity and look for gratitude. And I don't have to think about it. I don't have to force myself to do it. It's the way I am. And I guess those things that I did, and those things that the business coaches told me to do, or the high performance coaches told me to do, that I thought was hoo-ha, work. They really do. And I'll tell you, and you guys sound similar to me in that viewing the world in a great light, and viewing the opportunities and whatever we've got around us in a great light, is such an awesome way to go through life. Even when macro things are horrible, if we can still look and find awesome things in the world, it makes every day so much easier to wake up to. Every like, I'm one of these guys that in my MSP for a certain number of years, I used to hate Sundays. And that was because all I was thinking about on Sundays was Monday morning, like the dreaded morning. And nowadays I've turned around to, like, I love Sundays because I can't wait for Mondays now. And sometimes, like, in an odd way, Fridays are becoming a tough day for me now, because I'm like, oh, I've got to stop working now, and like, I've got to go and do family stuff now. And I love my family. We go out and hang out and eat and drink, or eat and do whatever we do on weekends. But I'm so excited by what I do, and I think part of that is obviously finding something that I'm wildly passionate about and doing. But other part of it is just focusing for many years on that gratitude, and focusing on finding the good things out there, and spotting the good things out there, and taking opportunities as they arise, and learning the lessons as they go, and seeing that we're in small micro trends that might be up and down, but in a global macro trend, we're always rising, we're always growing, and being cognizant and aware of that has just been very helpful for me over the years.
So funny story, Nigel. So you just had mentioned about how you can't wait for Monday. So I was on we were on an episode of Tech Bar with Ray Orsini. Shout out to Ray Orsini.
Awesome dude.
And so, they were like, oh, what was the question? Like, what was your favorite day?
Or what was your favorite day? Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I said Monday, and they were like, oh, that's BS and blah, blah, blah. What the heck are you? But exactly how you just explained it. I said, because when it comes to Friday, I have to shut off. And it's very hard for me to do that when I do something. And then when it comes to Sunday, I can't wait for Monday, because now I can go back full steam ahead on what I do. And it's a genuine thing. And then you also had mentioned, and this is kind of why everyone always laughs when I say this phrase, but it's part of me showing that appreciation and gratitude of what I have, is and whenever I'm asked, how are you? I always say better than good, better than most. And so everyone always says, and they always know me for that saying. And I got that from Les Brown from years ago, as I was kind of just finding my own journey back in 2014, when really that is when it started. And so now that I've known for it, but it's exactly like you just mentioned, and now I'm pre-programmed to say that, because it's true. I am doing better than good, and I'm probably doing better than most that are going through right now. And it's just being able to see that and actually believe it. And now that I've pre-programmed to just say it, I do believe in the spoken word, and that brings you what you say, whether negative or positive, has really made a big impact over the years.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I didn't realize until far too late in my journey was the whole notion of neuroplasticity. Our brains and our minds are not a hardwired thing, and I think it comes out of the whole fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And I thought for many years that I am who I am, and I have what I have, and I believe what I believe, and that's it. It's not going to get any better than this. And it took me a long time to understand that neuroplasticity exists, and our brains change and morph, and our beliefs change over time. And by doing things like you mentioned, Paco, with regular gratitude, regular, like all of this stuff, like working on our minds. You don't, the hard part is you don't see the results overnight, and you don't see them in weeks. But then when like in my journey, I remember I got forced by I was working with a high performance coach as I was going through a tough time, and he forced me to do daily meditation and daily journaling for 30 days. I tried to do it a couple of times, and I'd heard everybody talk about how good it was, and I'm like, oh, like this is crap. But he's forcing me to do it, and so I went and did it. He had to set me up with a high stakes accountability thing where I had to pay him an amount of money. I was already paying him $20,000, I think, for this work. And then I had to pay him something like another $500 if I didn't do it every day for 30 days. And so I did. And I'm sitting there going, like, doing these things, going, oh, what on earth? Like, I'm not seeing anything. Like, I'm weeks into doing this thing, and I'm not seeing any benefits whatsoever. And I get to the end of the 30 days, and I went, I didn't pay the extra $500. But the reality was that's all that drove me to get through that 30 days. And I at the end of 30 days, I still don't think I was seeing anything positive. But I thought, hang on, I got a bit of a streak here, and I'm a bit of a pig-headed. So I had a streak of 30 days, and I went, oh, I'm just going to see if I can go a little bit further here. And I did. And I reckon it was probably around the 50-day mark. I went, hang on, I'm feeling better. Like, I'm not I hadn't completely changed into a new human, but I was feeling, I could spot that I was seeing the world a little bit better. I was a little bit happier in my day-to-day interactions with my team and with my clients. And I was waking up a little bit easier in the morning. I'm like, hang on, maybe something is changing here. And I've obviously kept at it for years and years and years now, those habits. And the results are drastic now. Like, as I said, if I look back at Nigel 7, 8, 10, 15 years ago, wildly different human. And so I think the power of micro regular commitments and habits that we bring into our worlds is so underrated. And it's so, I get how hard it is, because we all want results today and tomorrow. We want to go and do things that we're going to see tangible results on very easily. But it's like investing, like the power of compound growth in investing doesn't happen until you do it for a long time. And the same thing happens when we're working on our own minds is it's a compound growth thing. It's you got to keep putting the work in, and then eventually you'll see a little tweak, and then things start to escalate and they start to go exponential. And I felt over the past many years as I've kind of dived more into the world of working on myself and my own horrible beliefs around certain things and whatever, and shining spotlights on all the craziness and running towards the things I'm scared of rather than running away from them. Everything gets easier, and everything gets more fun, and everything gets more joyful, and you see things differently. But it's taken that continual commitment past periods of comfortability. Like you've got to push through sometimes when you don't want to do this stuff and you're not seeing results of it. It's like the same with the gym, right? You often got to go and do the work for months at a time before you start to see the results. And the same thing happens working on your mind. But my encouragement there to anybody, if you're not doing some sort of personal development work in there, is start and push through for a period of time. And even when you feel like you're back up against the wall and nothing's working and you're not getting anything from it, you really are. And you just don't realize it. You're just seeing you're going through micro adjustments in your thinking and whatnot. And over time, they absolutely stack on and create a better you in there.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Rick.
No, I was going to say one of the things that it just reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend 10 years ago, where she said to me, you have to change you have to make a paradigm shift. Right. And you have to focus on your wins and not always harp on your losses, right? Yeah. Learn from your losses and enjoy your wins, because that will help you to move forward. It's how you focus. And if you focus on, I remember this conversation vividly, just saying, hey, this didn't happen. Hey, congratulations. And I said, yeah, but and then I gave all of the negative
yeah, but
she's like, you're always going to focus on the negative, and that's going to keep you there. If 100%. You enjoy the win, learn from the negatives. Don't just ignore them, but learn from them and move forward with them. Focusing on that totally helps you develop and helps you move in the right direction. It's like you said, Nigel, your brain is moving. You're going to move one of two ways, right? You're going to move upward and onward, but you're going to move downward and in depression, basically. And if you if you focus the wrong way, that's what's going to get you. So It's just a lesson I learned, and I always, and I think about this because you talked about the paying the therapist $500. As she had said to me, every time you do that, I'm going to make a note and charge you $100. So at the end of like 2 weeks, I get this funny invoice, handwritten, says you owe me $900. I was like, what's this for? With a list of all of the things that I said. And it's a learning lesson though. It's like, because you don't focus on it. But I just
what you're
funny.
rewiring. What you were rewiring there was your beliefs about yourself and your self-belief and your self-worth in there. And a lot of us, when I went through the exact same phases where you're bringing everything positive back to a negative. And the reason being, when you dig deep into it, is that I didn't believe I deserved anything positive. And that what you were going through there was rewiring that to build that belief that you actually do deserve positive things in your world. And once you get that belief about yourself and the confidence and the ability that you, or the understanding that you, or the core belief that you do deserve good in the world, then it makes everything else easier. And those little habits that you were working on were doing that. And the negative habits were reinforcing the negative in there. But as soon as you start doing those positive ones, you start reinforcing the positive, and you changed 100% through that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's it's a one of those where being able to mention, like you just said, as far as the self-worth and really trying to figure out how to rewire or just really look at it in a different aspect speaks volumes onto not only just your own just journey and motivation, but I think what's important for everyone listening here as we kind of round out the show is that, everyone always asks the question of, how am I going to charge X? How am I going to provide that?
Yep.
How is this MSP, that MSP is ripping everybody off and paying that in XXS. Well, why is that? Why do you think that? Is it because you're not confident in your own offerings to be able to offer that? I think that's where a lot of us kind of go
100%.
through. And as I kind of went through that same process, thinking like, when everyone says you don't charge enough, I think what really should peel it back is not so much of you're not charging enough because your current clients won't pay, which, that's
Very
an
rare.
actual scenario, right?
Yeah.
But, exactly like you said, it's very rare. The real point is you don't feel comfortable. Why don't you feel comfortable charging them what you feel you're worth? And that is in reverse of what you feel is worth. And how do you change that mindset? So for those that listen through this episode, I think really, you got to pick up Survive and Thrive. I mean, that's just my personal. We'll have the link in the show notes.
We can send you a PDF version if you want to post it somewhere and send it out to everyone.
That would be great.
Awesome.
We'll put it on Patreon because we got to do our posting tonight anyway. So we'll make sure we have that for those that are listening to this episode. It should be the month of June, so you'll have that in your Patreon subscriptions there. And I think it'll be just all around really great for those in the online community to one, read that book, and then two, we'll make sure we have the show note for the book title was Man Searching for Self. Was it
Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
Man's Search for Meaning. So we will make sure to have that link in the show notes as well for those to listen. Nigel, it's always a pleasure when we have you on the show. I love our conversations. Again, we were in the pre-show talking I don't know for how long, just trying to catch up. It's always a great conversation. I always try to cherish as much as I can because you are a busy man. But before we kind of round out the show, is there anything that we haven't discussed or something you want to leave with anyone before we kind of tie it up? And I'll just flip it back to Rick there.
We haven't discussed I think this show needs to now be renamed the Therapy Unplugged rather than MSP. I think we didn't do any MSP talk tonight. It was all mindset talk. But what I will leave on with that note is that the power of mindset, I for many years was one of those people that fluffed over personal growth and fluffed over things and thought that all of that stuff was happy, clappy crap. And I realized over the years that I was completely wrong. And the more I focused on myself and my beliefs and my patterns that I'd grown up with through my childhood and whatever, the more my business grew, and my businesses grew, and the more I was able to grow as a leader. And so I think the big takeaway from this is it's not always all about the tech and all about the pricing and all about the sales and all about the stuff. Exactly. It's also like the bigger part of the journey is about us and the growth journey that we are going through. And I see it time and time again in the MSP world and in the whole business world, in that the businesses that win are the ones that are are the ones where the owner and the leadership team and everybody on the team has this culture of investing into themselves before they're investing in anything else. They're focusing, and they're standing shoulder to shoulder saying, okay, we're going to improve ourselves here. We're going to improve ourselves there. And they're the ones that win over time. And I think that my big takeaway for anybody here is if you're in a space where you're like me 15, 20 years ago and that all crap's all happy clappy, it's good for you to say, then perhaps go and just even read a book like Man's Search for Meaning, or just go and spend a little bit of time here and there, just focusing on your mind and your beliefs. And just, as you said, Paco, unpacking the reasons behind your beliefs and trying to just spend a little bit of intentional time here and there, just shining a bit of a spotlight on you as a human and how you see the world, and seeing what areas you've got that might not be helping you get to where you want to go in there, and shining a bit of a spotlight on them and working on them and figuring out where to go. And I think we're so lucky right now in a society where it's the stigma of talking about mental health challenges and the terms therapy and all that stuff is so far different compared to what it was 10 years ago, where you used to no one talked about it. It was a horrible thing to talk about. We all felt like a failure if you went to anyone and said, hey, I'm not feeling well, or I'm not feeling great, or whatever. Like nowadays we're so lucky that everybody is willing to come out and share and say, hey, I'm going through a crap time. And then what happens in our Tech Tribe community is every now and then we have someone come in and say, oh, I need some help, blah, 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 blah. And they brain dump this horrible scenario that they're in. And what I love seeing is our industry come together and all respond saying, dude, I've been there, or I've been in your spot. I'm sorry to hear. Here's how I got through it. Here's how I got through it. Here's how I got through it. And it's just inspiring and to them. And so I think that's the end of my rant of just, if you are in a crap spot and you're not feeling like the world is awesome around you, make sure you get around some people that are seeing the world in that way, and it rubs off on you, and then eventually you get to a point where you go, I feel bloody awesome now. Let me go and help others that are going through the crap stage that I was going through in there. And it's kind of this circle of life. I feel that we all a lot of us go through that. We go through the tough times and we come out a better human, and we help other people go through the tough times. And the tough times are what build us and create us. And so I'm going to end my rant on that one there, because otherwise I'll babble on forever. And this will definitely have to be rebranded as the Mindset Therapy Unplugged podcast instead.
Hey, but if the truth is, it'll help us when we focus on that. It helps us become better leaders, better business people, better service. Give better service to our customers, and become better bosses or employers, or whatever the word is. Human, thank you. That's even better. It helps us with all of that, and it's an important topic that, and it's like you said, I'm glad it's no longer a stigma to talk about things like this.
Yeah, agreed.
But, Nigel, I do want to thank you again. I know you're a really busy guy, so we've taken some of your time today, and I appreciate you giving it to us. I will say this to everyone. Nigel's a humble guy, but I am going to plug the Tech Tribe. I've been a member for a long time, and I've gotten great value out of it. And you guys have heard me talk about the Tech Tribe and some things I've learned, or some conversations I've gotten from it, or some, I think it is a great resource, particularly for the price, for the people you get to meet, the experience, the opportunities there, just the learnings. I highly recommend it. I don't have enough adjective to describe how great I think the tribe is, but
your commission check in the mail.
Okay, I heard it. No, but in all honesty, though, you guys have heard me talk about this before, and I do think it is worth your time to give it a shot, to take a look and see what's out there. It's a great community with great people, and it's run by a great guy. So, Nigel, again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on. We should do this a little bit more often than once every 2 or 3 years.
Hey, you got an open invitation. You're always welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll make sure we make that a more regular occasion for sure.
Now, for those of you listening, we invite you to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. Watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged or facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, hit the notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. If you think we have a face for radio, you can always take us on the go. We're in your favorite podcatcher apps. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. For Paco, Nigel, and I, we want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.